Hello, Trombone Internet. This is Chris Van Hoff, assistant to the regional manager of the International Trombone Festival. We at the festival, of course, are huge fans of the pod, and we are really excited to invite you to attend this year's 2024 International Trombone Festival at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Dave Begnosh is our host. We have the world premiere of a brand new double concerto for trombone and piano with the Fort Worth Symphony. We have the American Brass Quintet. We have late night jazz featuring a Latin jam session. Like, everything is happening. All the cast will be there. It's the best hang in the world, and we hope to see you there. You can register for the festival still online at www.internationaltrombonefestival.com, and it's happening the last week of May. So go register. We'll see you in Texas.
Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, a podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, low brass artist, vocalist, composer, band leader, educator, and recent COVID-19 survivor Ron Wilkins joins us. My name is Sebastian Vera, and I'm joined as always by Nick Schwartz. Nick, I'm going to socially distance see you soon.
I cannot wait to socially distance hug you.
I'm going to socially distance, have so much fun with you, and I'm really excited to hang out in Michigan, socially distanced.
It's going to be amazing. We are going to socially distance the trombone and socially distance the grilling of meats and socially distance maybe the drinking of beers.
All those work. And is it like seventh position that technically makes the trombone 6 feet long to like all those memes that are being posted?
Well, I'm a firm believer in what's called the trombone Hogwarts theory, and that's if you believe there's an eighth position, there is an eighth position.
I am not familiar with that theory. So we had the distinct honor to talk to Ron Wilkins today. I am still thinking about the interview. I was really blown away by him. And, you know, for those that aren't aware, he recently survived COVID-19, was in a coma for 32 days, and on a ventilator for 37 days. And 90% of people that go into those situations don't come out of it. And he just has a wonderful story of inspiration and perseverance to share with us, and just his unique perspective during this time.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is, maybe not funny thing, but the inspirational thing, I guess I'll say, is that the way he talked about COVID was kind of like it was like a blip on the radar for him. And that it was just like, oh yeah, you know, like this thing happened and I decided like I still had some music to make. It was kind of like I woke up and just got going. And it seems like he just didn't stop, you know, even though the 32 days had passed. It's pretty remarkable. He was just ready to get going and play the trombone and play the tuba and play the bass trombone, tenor trombone, alto trombone, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the instruments that he plays, he's just ready to go.
And I think anyone that knows Ron Wilkins isn't surprised, because he's been doing incredible things his whole life. He's such a unique player, and things he's figured out on the trombone that I've never heard anyone do on a bass trombone and trombone in general. It was just really inspiring. Like you said, he's already back to work. He's already practicing 2 hours a day, which is a lot more than most people are practicing right now.
Right.
He just loves the craft. He loves making music. He can't wait to make music. And I think music and being a trombonist uniquely served him getting through this process of having the lung capacity, the strong lung power. He was shocking his respiratory therapist with how much he could do so quickly. We want to get to the interview because I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. And just as a word of warning for those of you with younger children listening, this episode contains some explicit language and imagery.
You've been warned.
So enjoy this interview with the legendary Ron Wilkins.
Yeah, guys.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I got you on full screen on the iMac settling into Austin. I was trying to figure this stuff out while I'm buzzing on the mouthpiece.
Feel free to buzz during the interview if you're bored.
That's good. Okay, trust me. The only thing is that I like to share and share alike. So I hope you got your mouthpieces with you guys.
Mine's just out of arm's reach.
All right, cool.
Are we supposed to practice during this pandemic?
Wow, what a concept. Listen, I've had enough downtime just dealing with COVID, so I'm glad to be back on the horn again and getting my chops in shape.
Yeah, so you're already playing. So how long have you been home?
Just about 2 weeks as of tomorrow.
2 weeks in the whole process. Okay, so we have 37 days on a ventilator, 32 days in a coma.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, we're just couldn't be more thrilled to see you back and healthy, and especially that video you posted playing. I mean,
yeah, amazing.
Golly.
Thank you. It's been quite the adventure, to put it in no certain terms. I was pretty much out cold during the time when I was originally diagnosed with the COVID in early April. And that was after having come to Austin first to go ahead and play Aladdin, the touring musical, which got canceled after 2 days, and then stayed down in San Antonio, figuring that I was away from New York in enough time to not have to deal with it when it was the epicenter of the virus. I catch the virus in San Antonio.
You were being smart. You were getting away from that epicenter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So with the Aladdin tour, just kind of getting into this whole thing, was that originally supposed to be you were going to be in Austin and then you were going to continue on the road?
It was set up to where I was going to be in Austin, and then I was going to take the last week of March, because it was going to run the middle 2 weeks, down in San Antonio to visit with my mom and check in on her. She's going to be 90 this year.
Oh, wow.
And still very much an avid Spurs fan.
You already brought up the Spurs. We're trying to have a nice podcast.
He's got the shirt and everything.
Represent, bitches.
Well, thanks for popping on.
You got a Mavericks fan over there, Ron.
And that's all good. That's all good. Nothing but love. It's all in the same state.
We got 2011. That's all we got.
Oh, man. But still, though, Dirk was just a monster.
Oh, man.
He was
that's the most high fives I've given to strangers in downtown Dallas in my life. Such a good time.
I can so appreciate it. I was going through that whole thing, too, after the 99 championship, because I was playing down on the Riverwalk. At the time when the Spurs had won, they were over at the new arena there, still over in I guess it's the new Alamo Dome now, but they're in that AT&T Center, which is a little bit further east. But everything was happening downtown at that time, and I could not get out of downtown. And at that point, my wife couldn't get in town because everybody was going crazy. So I'm hanging at a bar from around 11:30 after my set ended to about 5 a.m.
Oh, my God.
It was awesome. It was just so awesome.
That you weren't tired at all either.
No. I mean, and it's like step out on the street, people are driving by, high fives all around, pure ecstasy, just unbelievable.
See, I grew up a Pistons fan.
Oh, man. Listen, the bad boys were serious, though. Nothing but love and respect.
I was at the Palace of Auburn Hills for Game 7 in 2004. I mean, because it was down in San Antonio, Game 7.
Yes.
But they hosted a watching party at the Palace, and I was there to watch the Pistons lose, unfortunately. But it was awesome. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, but that matchup was... That matchup, yeah, seriously.
Two years in a row, that matchup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think was it your second championship?
Yeah.
Was the one when we lost, and then we came back again, kind of like what we just did recently in 2013 and 14 with Miami. Because we had a chance to win. We had a chance to win that one.
That was one of the few times I was really rooting for the Spurs.
Really?
Oh, Miami is the only team that's like worse on the list for me. But we don't have to get it.
At that time, they were loaded. But yeah, let's steer clear for now. But still.
Back to much happier topics of you being in the hospital, right?
Hey, let's get morbid.
Yeah. I mean, so for those fortunate to see you've been featured on CNN, USA Today, multiple newspapers right now, which has to be a whirlwind. But most of all, you're on the trombone retreat right now, which I mean must be just the pinnacle for you.
In all honesty, I've been waiting to hear from you guys for weeks. Okay.
Oh,
I knew that when I was recovering and such, there's like, okay, I've been hearing from Joe Alessi regularly, checking in, saying hi and such.
Oh,
And along with Ben Van Dyke and Ian Bousfield, among others, which has all been great. But it's like, where's the guys with the trombone retreat?
oh.
WTF, man?
I'm not gonna
missing
lie.
something here.
I'm not gonna lie. We were monitoring you and just waiting for, like, we didn't want to ask too soon, of course, and you were rehabbing, and so let's walk through this process a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, by all means.
So you've had transplants in the past, kidney transplants.
I had a kidney transplant almost 6.5 years ago.
Wow. So you're already on immune suppressants for that, I imagine.
Yes, I am.
So
And
you
everything's
still are.
been going great with that. Oh, very much so. There was a scary moment, though, when they admitted me in for COVID and my kidney was failing. So they actually had to put me back on dialysis for a couple of days.
Wow.
But, and to be honest with you, I mean, like I said, I was out cold. I don't remember squat going on. All that time I was fighting like werewolves and demons and trying to figure out how to play Tchaikovsky on trombone again.
So you remember dreams you had?
Oh, geez, absolutely. A lot of which, may I say, were rather vivid because they were also like infused.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I prefer a good beer, with the occasional opiate in it as much as the next guy. But that kind of cocktail had me gone. It was unbelievable.
I would love to hear some compositions based on those dreams.
Oh, listen, I've already got some things I'm working on. It's funny you should mention that. When I was a kid growing up, my older and younger brother and I, me being the tortured middle child, would do a lot of singing together. So my father, back in like the mid-'60s, bought us a reel-to-reel tape. It's like a TAG deck. And we'd be having it in the car there with like the gajillion D batteries in it and everything. And we're singing all sorts of harmonies and making up these songs. So we came up with these characters. And this really came to me pretty much after I got out of the coma. That why not go ahead and do songs of my childhood? But they're ridiculous characters. Like, say, for instance, growing up in San Antonio, being military brats, we got this huge background of just meeting people from all over the world when we were kids. So everybody was cool. So we just come up with these wacky things. And next, we'd hear from some kid who would come up with an idea or like make some sounds like a wink. And then next, we're coming up with the tunes. So the 3 titles I have in mind are, the first one is called Sabalooty Tate and the Habalooty Haybees. Definitely Western theme.
Love it.
That's one. The second one, now I can't remember it, of course. But the third one is going to be the funk-based tune called Do the Muffa Gwink Gwink. Yeah.
These sound like some of those crazy Mingus titles. That
I mean, well, I was dreaming this stuff listening to Ellington, courtesy of my father's record collection. So some of the orchestrations that came to mind as I think about it later is like, okay, it makes sense. Makes sense. Ellingtonia lives.
So you wake up after 32 days.
Yeah.
And obviously you had no idea how much time had passed. I mean, what's your reaction? Do they even tell you how much time has passed?
Oh yeah. My best friend and partner in this whole crusade has been Becca Patterson, who's a phenomenal bass and tenor trombonist. We've been working together for years in New York and put together our own big band. Find it on YouTube, kids. RonWilkins.net. There's the way to go.
Boom.
But she found out that I was in the hospital and flew down from New York to go ahead and help me out. And she's just been so wonderful as just like one of the tightest people that I've got in my life. So she put the word out through social media and also worked with some dear friends of mine in Austin, one of whom is my tax attorney and lawyer. So we got legal preparations taken care of, and then was able to go ahead and they were able to go over to my mom's house and pick up my instruments for me. Because at the time before this all happened, I was doing this little YouTube, Facebook, Instagram shoots of me going through a practice session with everybody. And in the last 15 minutes playing bass lines on a B flat or G blues, and they have to improvise off of it. But at the time, then I got sick with at first oak pollen in the air, which led me to COVID. Now, going forward, coming out of it all, the craziest part, honestly, guys, was that, for one, I didn't have any recollection of what happened. I had all these crazy dreams. I was thinking that, oh my gosh, I've got 3 dogs now that I have to make sure they're fed and they're up in New York in the penthouse. No. My girlfriend at the time, I got her pregnant and we were expecting a kid. No.
Wow.
And the CIA and the FBI had been infiltrated by jazz and they were trying to recruit me. And I kept going, no, I'm not a Fed. No, it was weird.
Infiltrated by jazz?
Yeah.
I would love a jazzy
Blame the drugs.
CSI. Well, what do you
I would
say?
love it.
FBI?
I have no problem.
CIA.
FBI, yeah. I mean,
The truth comes out.
Yeah, it does. It's, I hadn't really thought about that one for a while, but it was just really weird because I'm having to go ahead and work my way through all the training, which incorporated all the music ed stuff I had done back when I was an undergrad at North Texas. Having to go through that again, like, really? Come on. There's some crazy stuff. I came out of it and I'm talking with Becca and I'm asking, okay, I'm still thinking it's April. I'm like, okay, I know I need to get my taxes done. I can file an extension. Maybe I can get through that. And she's going, Ron, it's May. You've lost 32 days.
Whoa.
And just, mind blown, mind totally blown. I have little snippets of things that happened during the time I was out now, like when I was getting an MRI done, but I don't remember so much of it. When they intubated me, they actually cut across my lip here, but it was more of an outer skin cut. Oh, listen, I've been doing like long tones at fortissimo on tuba over the last couple of days here and getting lightheaded as hell, but the chops are good. Right now it's just cosmetic, which gives me like, street cred.
Battle scar.
Yeah, there it is.
The other guy.
Once again, my advertisement, Ivan Giddings makes these mouthpieces. Anyways, I hope he just appreciates the shout out, but all my pieces are stainless steel, so they're very comfortable. And they're crafted. Yeah,
that definitely helps.
It does help. It does help. Plus, the tone and core sound I get out of these is ridiculous. So, kudos.
Man, I just can't imagine. Have you ever? I mean, I know people have gone through situations, maybe with your kidney transplant. Mm-hmm. Did you lose some time with that procedure? Or had you ever had any time in your life where you've lost days like that?
Well, this was the longest stretch of non-sanctioned break I think I've ever had.
No, non-sanctioned.
Non-sanctioned. Sorry, it's military training.
Yes.
Growing up in it, and plus it's 10 years in the Air Force band.
Oh, right.
So, we're going to get into that too, for sure.
Glory.
I read that there was a point, and it sounded like you had some amazing doctors, and the San Antonio article especially is really beautifully written, really thoughtfully written, I thought. And
thank you. I really enjoyed that as well. I thought the guy did a great job with it. The photographer came out, got some really cute photos of me in my robe.
Ladies.
Hey, all single ladies. It was well done, and he really captured what we were talking about. There are a couple of things in it, once again, that they don't quite get right, or a couple of things I might have left out that I thought would have had more pertinence and relevance. But still, that's probably one of the best ones I've done. The one that I did recently with CNN was an exposure thing, and just being lucid in the moment, making sure I had my third cup of coffee before I went on. Hey.
I read at one point the doctor was like, things are not looking good. Prepare for the worst.
April 26th. Apparently at that point I was dying. They called Becca and notified my family and had this huge prayer chain. I mean, thousands of people, literally globally. Not to mention friends who put together a little mini concert for me that they did on my Facebook page. Some just great musicians and wonderful people. But I was knocking on death's door, and I've already had some people ask, what was it like? What did you see? It's like a lot of black. I didn't like necessarily turn around and see the light over my shoulder or anything, but I just knew that this wasn't my time. It was like, one of those things with growing up in a faith-based household. I relied on that. And yet something within me also said, no, man, you got more to do. You ain't done. You ain't done yet. Call it divine influence. Call it sheer will. I just call it the fact that, I grew up with an indomitable will to just be the best I could. And I think that was one of the things also that really helped me through that. I was talking to my mom recently, and I said this on CNN, and she's like, you should make sure you thank the Lord. I said, I did. I grew up in a faith-based household. There's a lot of power in that, and interpretation comes all the way around from different sources. I just know that within me, it was just, I still had a lot of music to make. I was just getting started at this. I mean, the whole journey from before COVID to having lived 5 years in New York and played Broadway shows, playing with orchestras, chamber brass, working with guys with the Met as well as at Juilliard, and then playing with like just monster bands, Basie, the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, the regular spot on the Birdland Big Band every Friday night. I mean, man, this is great stuff. And then going over and sub on a Broadway gig, and then afterwards have Taco Friday. LeBron came up with Taco Tuesday, but it's like, no, bro, Taco Friday was before Taco Tuesday. You did
Taco every day.
Yeah,
exactly. There we go.
Preach.
I mean, I read, a recent study said that, 90% of people that go on the ventilator don't recover.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So let's talk brass tacks, okay? Back in 1978, I was doing my studies at North Texas with Royce Lumpkin and Dr. Leon Brown. These guys were such classical geeks. I'm just calling them like I smelled them, guys. It's nothing but love, because I too am a geek now. I have been initiated into geekdom, Hail Sinfonia, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is that these guys helped to culture a love for me of the classical repertoire, but in order to do it well, I had to understand and get my fundamentals together. Musically speaking, the musicality that I had coming up ever since I was a kid, that's not a problem. Never was an issue. It's just the knowledge that had to come with it. So they taught me, among other things, to go ahead and use breathing devices. I started on an incentive spirometer back in 78, and also then got a 5-liter breathing bag that I could fill. Still can, as far as that goes. I credit and blame bass trombone. Because I did that when I was back, and I started working on it back in the mid-'80s when I was in the Air Force Band. And it changed my life. It really did. It's the one instrument that gave me the greatest range and the biggest voice, and it sounded exactly like me, damn it. So it's like, yeah. And now that I've been a Shires artist for a few years with it, I got this custom bass that was put together for me at the time by a fantastic low brass artist named Ben Griffin.
Yeah,
He's up in Massachusetts. Ben. Yeah, Ben's a beast, man.
Yeah.
Ben is a sheer terror. I mean, like literally, Coast Guard euphonium guy. I was like an Air Force euphonium guy along with the tenor and bass trombone. And he's doing tenor, bass bone, sousaphone, tuba. So we geeked out so hard for about 3 days off and on up at the Shires factory, and came up with the small tenor, the large bore, and the bass. And I've never sounded better. I've never been happier.
Now, one thing I want to say about your bass trombone playing as a fellow bass trombonist is, and I mean this as a huge compliment, you don't really play the bass trombone like a bass trombone. It's like a bass trombone with a tenor trombone inside of it. I mean, because you'll play lines that are in the bass line, and then you'll keep going, and you'll suddenly be in the altissimo.
Yeah.
And so, when did that become part of your voice? When did that develop? How did that develop?
Well, it's quite the evolution, really. It started off when I was a kid listening to way too many Maynard Ferguson albums.
That'll do it.
Yeah, it messed me up. And then I was able to go ahead and literally manufacture my bass, much to the chagrin of my private teachers. So I could actually go ahead and go with an upstream based embouchure that allowed me to get up to the double B flat and above. But everything else in the middle of it was kind of like iffy. And forget pedal register. It was just... So once I got to college, I had instructors who said, no, you want to play high, play low. And the high school guys were all good and everything, especially the one in particular I credit for helping me with my musical sense and jazz chops. And that was John Blondell. He's an Austin, Texas legend. Tenor trombonist extraordinaire, also an amazing electric bassist, just phenomenal musician. But anyway, the evolving into bass trombone. It really came to me more so as I started working on orchestral repertoire, to be honest with you, because I was listening at the time to a lot of Christian Lindbergh. And then somebody came in and turned me on to Charlie Vernon, and that messed me up for life. Seriously, he does that to people. He's a wonderful cat. Loved having beers with him at one of the ITFs we did back in 2002. But it made me feel like at that particular point, I became a real part of the bass trombone fraternity, sorority, pick one. But it was by mid-'80s when I was in the Air Force Band and I wanted to start playing bass trombone because I wanted to go ahead and get my doubles down. I knew that at one point I was going to be working towards getting Broadway chops. So I got on it, and then I went back to one of my old teachers, Peter Klein, who used to be bass trombonist with the San Antonio Symphony for over 45 years. And he straightened me out not only in Remington techniques, because he was an Eastman grad under the chief, but then also turned me on to being able to play, working on the facility of the instrument, studying Alan Raff's work, studying Paul Felice. Right. And one of my dear friends over in Bethlehem, Israel, Eliezer Aharoni.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, and Mika. Yeah, Mika's cool, man. He and I have shared many a beer over the last few years. I've been the guest artist at the Tel Aviv version of the New Orleans Jazz Festival.
Oh, wow.
Did this in 2018 and 2019. So Mika and I got to hang a bit. Next time I'm over, I said, I'm staying for a month at your house. Wow. We're going to hang out. We're doing hummus. We're going to have beer. We're going to play duets. We're going to get stupid. Now, all you got to do is just play a blues. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts, right? But it's like, this is going to happen. Mika's the shizzle, man. He's a cool cat and one of the best fucking bass trombonists in the world. The sound he gets out of his horns is just unearthly at times.
Oh, yeah. There's some great recordings from over there.
Oh, man. Well, the Israel Philharmonic's no joke.
Oh, yeah.
Far from it. They are the real deal. In fact, I was watching some highlights of a gala that they had last night. It's all for the Israel Philharmonic. It was stellar. Tremendous.
I don't doubt it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then from there, I just went over to Avengers Endgame so I could finish watching the show.
So if we can jump back a little bit and just kind of trace your career a little bit. So you were born in Germany. Did you grow up there at all, or was it?
I spent half a year there before my father got transferred over to Texas, and literally about a year after that, the youngest brother in my family, Anthony, was born in San Antonio. The folks both came from large families, so the part of their thing was that they wanted to have a large family, but it didn't work out as what they thought. So 3 boys. And
military family.
After that, about a year and a half later, after Tony was born, we ended up in Fort Dix, New Jersey. And then from there, back to San Antonio again. My father was diagnosed at the end of his 20-year career with multiple sclerosis. So the family settled on south because, for one, it's warmer, it's better for him, circulation. And number 2, my mom's family's from all around San Antonio and Austin, as well as east of Austin in a little city called Manor. Great barbecue, by the way. Should you guys find yourselves down, warn me ahead of time. I got some places.
We could have a whole podcast to talk about barbecue.
Oh, yes. And we could actually do one there live. I'm sure the guys at Black's wouldn't mind some publicity from a bunch of
I like where your
boneheads.
head's at. I really do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But yeah, I was born overseas. And like I said, I had the opportunity for a really well-rounded education. Mom was always an educator. So she wanted to make sure that we understood about proper grammar, handwriting, speech, diction, King's English, if you will. And then from there, to get a good education. I started off on the colored side of town as a kid growing up. By the time I was in 6th grade, we went over to across the tracks to the white side of town, where the education wasn't that different. It was just that the level of it was better.
What do you mean by level of it?
The education itself, as far as the structure and the form of it, really that wasn't that much different. It was just more so that I had more opportunities to get the materials I needed to be able to study and to be able to grow. That particular type of, I guess I called it level, but more so opportunities that came with being on that side of the world. It took a minute to fit in. At one point, we had somebody burn a cross in the front yard. Oh, yeah.
Boy.
Come on, man. I'm growing up in South Texas. Yeehaw.
Wow.
There's so many jokes I could tell, but I don't know if you have that much time. But the thing is that we didn't let that deter us. My father and my mother were both very strong Christians and believed that the Lord was guiding them to make sure that their sons could have the best education possible. And in turn, not just book sense, but my father said, just make sure your common sense is matching your book sense. So that was a matter of just being able to go ahead and learn from my experiences. By age 13, I had the talk about how to react around police. By the time I was 15 and 16, I got stopped for lifting an Afro comb at a store and just wanted to go back and turn it back and said, I won't do that again. And they said, okay.
We were going to kind of get into this a little later on, but since you brought it up,
sure.
During this whole process in the hospital, how aware were you of all of the protests going on?
No idea. But as a child growing up in the 60s, I remember the civil rights movement. I remember seeing the videos of Dr. Martin Luther King, seeing black men and women being sprayed with hydro cannons and the dogs set upon them. And then I watched the same fucking shit happen now. I mean, in part, yes, because of George Floyd's death, but how many countless others? And we've had riots before, but this one seems to have a different tone to it and a different level of effect. In my own personal life, I feel very fortunate that, yes, I was subjected to at times inherent racism and other times to overt racism, but I never let it deter me because I was raised to look at everyone as one big color scheme, which was all part of the human palette, the human spectrum, if you will. And that was one of the things that I picked up when I was going through an undergrad, because I started studying other religions of the world and other philosophies. And it just opened my eyes and my mind to the fact that there's really not that much different. And yet there's everything different. We all have our own similarities. We all bleed the same blood. We all end up crapping the same way or eating different foods. We all deal with acid reflux. But the thing is that not all of us play trombone, which really makes me very happy, although I wish more people did. But, growing up the way I did, seeing racism for what it is now, I mean, remembering at one point in high school, a couple of guys said show up in Klan robes at the high school I was in. And unfortunately, the vice principal, who was black and also a former Marine, said, "Oh, hell no."
Wow.
Yeah, but still, they got far enough to scare us. And it was I just felt bad for them. If anything, I pitied them. Just because I felt like this is what you have to do to be able to prove your superiority by putting on a robe that condemns you as well as the people that believe the way you do. I feel sad for you. I do, which would piss them off. But, that's not my problem. And now in this light and day and time, when there's been a lot of tolerance allowed to the other side of it, whether you can look at the right or the alt-right side, the problem is that, and the issue is that this is part of our history. This is really nothing new.
Yeah.
What this is just being brought to light again. You open the door to the shed that you haven't been in 25, 30 years or since 1968. And what do you expect to see? Pristine, clean, and everything's nice? No, you're going to see rats. You're going to see cat and dog shit. You're going to see cockroaches by the millions. And if you're lucky, maybe a dead raccoon or possum. But it's still been there. This is nothing new. I'm glad that more people are woke. I think it's fantastic. But this is nothing new. This is now because we have a chance to make something better. But people need to keep protesting. People still need to, and I look at it from the way that Dr. Martin Luther King did. Do you really want to get the people's attention? Put on a boycott. You can protest all you want, but if you stop purchasing from them, for instance, I found a lot more black businesses in and around the Austin area that serve just as good a barbecue as any of the corporate guys. And they will get my money and my business in part, not just because they are black, but because that shit is good. You want some oxtail? You ever get down here to Austin? I actually got a place to get some oxtail. Who's black on you?
So back when you were growing up, did part of you just want to get out of that area as quickly as possible, or?
Oh, of course. Of course. I have no wish. From the movie Blazing Saddles, there's this one scene in there where all of a sudden here's Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder hanging out, and they're going through the line there, and they're trying to make sure they can get into the tollway there before all the bad guys. They see a couple of Klansmen, and one of them, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Gene Wilder and Cleavon Little come up with this plan where they get the guy at the Klansman's attention in front of them. The guys are wearing like these like smiley face emojis on the backs, like "Have a nice day." It's just pure parody by Mel Brooks, genius. They turn around and Gene Wilder grabs Cleavon Little and says, "Hey boys, look what I got here." And Cleavon Little goes, "Where are the white women at?" So they chase these guys around the building just to knock them out and then put on their robes so they could get up here to the front of the line and try and infiltrate the bad guy's camp. A later scene out of that, even though I understand the racial overtones in that, the thing was for me growing up and watching something like this happen and seeing a black actor actually portraying with that comedic level of skill like Cleavon Little did is inspiring to me. It was inspiring because this guy was up here and he was doing this and he was acting and it was pure parody and I got it. It was hilariously funny. But the other side of it was that here's a brother up here on the film doing this and making bank. That's got to make you proud. That's got to make you feel like, yeah, man, that's why we fight. I can't begin to tell you after so much study of American music history how many countless Negro acts that were there doing blackface as well as all the white acts, and without blackface, the white actors, because they could do it. They had the skill that was literally part of the unfortunate heritage that came about through slavery. But the other side of it was that they brought the culture with them. And welcome to the melting pot. Like it, love it, leave it, learn it. But the thing is that the music that came across the seas from the slaves of different African countries, as well as over in Latin America, made this nation. Look at the art forms we have now, not just from the standpoint of looking at it from Western European classical artists, but African American artists like William Grant Still, composers who did phenomenal works of music and was heralded throughout Europe as a premier artist and composer. But not as much of his music has been played. More of it is starting to be now again because of the influx and influence of groups like Black Lives Matter. We're starting to hear more about these guys again and their music. I did papers on them years ago. I also did a paper as part of a presentation back in 2008 or 2009 at the Southeastern Trombone Symposium up at Texas Tech University, talking about the music of Arthur Pryor. And I brought up the history as well of the rags that he did, and trying to make the raggiest of rags, which was a form of coon songs and minstrelsy, to bring that point across and let people know that, yeah, listen, I mean, I understand that it was, quote, the heritage of the time, no matter how degraded or segregated it was. But I also get to the pain that was inflicted because of it. And I tried to convey that as well, and then still turned around and played Bluebells of Scotland at the end of the show, which is still one of my favorite
And
pieces.
I'm sure you've seen everything going around probably in the last 24 or 48 hours about Lassus trombone and the history discovered there.
As a matter of fact, I knew that stuff years ago. The decolored valet of Miss Sally trombone. Come on, man.
I wish I had any idea.
I didn't know. I really didn't know. No,
I mean, but the thing
no idea.
is, here's the crazy part to me about this. I still played these things. I used to play these particular solos as part of the Air Force band, and we'd go out on tour and such. And I'd play Lassus. I'd play bull trombone. I'd play Sally trombone, Teddy trombone, and not blink an eye about it because I'd looked at it from the artistry it took to be able to write these pieces at that time and to play them. They inherited a lot of trombone technique in terms of slide glissandi, going either against the grain or towards you. And I looked at it from a musical standpoint as being another, once again, in a way, a challenge. But the other side of it is that to play it with the authenticity that I felt it deserved. It didn't have to dress up in blackface and all that bullshit. The thing was just being able to play the piece and to be able to give it the best possible face that I could with the way I could play it. And God damn it, I played my ass off. So, but touring like with 6 months in a row and you're doing the works of Arthur Pryor. So I'm playing, at one point Razamazaza, which the trombone section, another point playing Bluebells or Thoughts of Love, Love's Thoughts or Love's Enchantment on a 6-month tour. So it's like, here I was years later writing the paper on Arthur Pryor. It's like half the time I didn't even look towards the other references on there. I studied it. But I also found a doctoral thesis that was done by this gentleman, I believe, at the University of Arkansas. That was also very helpful. So I collaborated his sources and was able to come up with my own insights and such on the music. But, there's this rich and varied and colorful history of the music that's been going on for centuries. But now that we're starting to see this in this form of what Fillmore did, yeah, of course it was racist. Come on. That was at the time period. We could find dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of manuscripts up there that were done at that period that had to deal with slavery, that had to deal with stereotypes, that had to deal with coon songs, minstrelsy, blackface, among others.
So from what you're saying, do you think because of the historical merit, because you still perform those pieces, do you think there's a place for it to be performed?
I think what I call them is museum pieces. I think that at a particular time and place, these are pieces that, say, for instance, I would have no problem playing these, be in front of an audience of black people or white people, just to go ahead and convey the message that this was the music of the day. You can look at it from which way you choose to, but the thing is that this is an important element of our history. And as musicians and artists, we should go ahead and do this. Music has it's never been like staid and, dainty and shit.
It's a historical document. It could be argued that it's worse to ignore that it happened. It's the same thing. I've had this conversation about things in opera, like Turandot with ping, pang, and pong, these like Asian stereotypes. It's like almost more important to know where we came from, you could say. Yeah,
I think that's the thing, because if we don't remember our history, then we're doomed to forget it. And I know there's a quote based on that. But the thing is that, like I said, it's a museum piece. Any of the Fillmore rags and stuff, any of the Arthur Pryor works that he did, which, was so innovative because at the time, Sousa wasn't a big fan of the fledgling recording industry. So Arthur Pryor conducted just about 90% of the Sousa library for RCA at the time. which made him a pioneer also in the recording industry. Talk about your first megastar. Forget Simon Cowell, man. We had Arthur Pryor. and then he wrote the freaking repertoire.
Yeah.
No one else had done stuff like that beforehand. Everybody's talking about, oh, Paganini, oh, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got your Paganini right here.
Did you see those old pictures where he's like, those bands just sell out stadiums when they be on tour?
Oh, yeah. It was crazy. I mean, reading in the doctoral thesis about how he would go on these European tours with the Sousa band and have all these players come out and dispute him and such. And there's a particular article in one of the Parisian magazines saying that he came out and was like, did he impress the crowd? Not only did he impress the crowd, but his sounds were like thunderbolts and clasps of iron and lightning. And it's like they're being all vivid with it, but basically he just blew the fucking house down. And everybody just went slack-jawed. It's like the first time I heard Bill Watrous doing his cadenza on Fourth Floor Walk Up on the Manhattan Lotto Refuge album. Oof. That triple E flat just made me wet myself the first time. Like I said, I grew up as a Maynard kid, so
I was gonna make the correlation, but there you go.
yeah. There's our Maynard Ferguson, and what an incredible and illustrious career. Not to mention having the opportunity to play with him at least a half dozen times.
Oh yeah, wow.
Oh yeah. Bill was the real deal, indisputable. Yeah, one of my first real trombone heroes. Him and J.J. Johnson.
Those are good ones to have, I would say.
Oh man, that helped me out. But let's get to bass trombone again for a moment. Because, this is the trombone hang. 1977, I'm in my undergrad at North Texas. I'm still kind of like, snotty nose for what that's worth. But they had the first National Trombone Conference that was going on outside of Tennessee. It was held at North Texas. George Roberts was the guest artist.
Oh, wow.
George showed up, brought his music -1 albums, play along such, and just gave a clinic on how to play and phrase as a vocalist.
Oh, man.
But doing it on that Conn bass trombone, which is like butter. And I listened to it, and I was mesmerized by his tone. And after 15 minutes, I looked at my friends and said, let's go bowling. Because I was a bebop kid, and it's like, too much melodicism, man. I got to play this stuff. So here I was years later in the mid-'80s playing bass trombone. And who did I first turn to on recordings again? George Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Because you talk about putting together the sound, the core, the technique, the facility, the range. If you ever checked out this one cut that Stan Kenton and his orchestra did called "This Is an Orchestra."
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The trumpet section on that
it's
alone.
Like, oh gosh, not to mention Frank Rosolino doing some trombone madness.
Yes.
Another one of my heroes. Play it all, 8VB, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Which was turned into a battle cry of sorts. Going all the way back a ways here to the question about the facility of playing the horn as a bass trombonist and singing like a tenor trombonist. It's all part of the same range. But to me, the challenge was actually being able to play the repertoire and to work on pieces by great artists such as Charlie Parker and Charles Mingus, among others, 8VB to 15VB. Take them down 1 to 2 octaves and try and play those heads. It's like, when I was working on orchestral excerpts, I'd play tuba middle, all 12 keys, 3 octaves.
Wow.
Why not? Why not? If
So you
else,
do the same thing with the Omnibook. Sit down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Crush it. 15 VB.
Yeah, man. I mean, but I'll get on tuba at times because it really works on the fingers and the facility on that end. And the tuba complements the bass trombone for me, like the bass trombone complements the tuba. But they're two different beasts, so I approach them with 2 different mouthpieces, but a similar embouchure set that allows me to get the best possible vibration I can through the horn.
So I'm curious about what you think about doubling and all that, and instruments helping each other, because I find that when I play a decent amount of contrabass trombone.
Sure, and don't think I don't know this already, you bastard. I want one. I'm serious. About 3 years ago, I was at the Dillon Music Store there in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and they had a Leitch.
Yeah,
Contra.
I was borrowing that for a little bit. That thing is an amazing horn.
The heart palpitates.
Yeah,
I love that horn. And they said, "Oh, that's
beautiful.
great, but you might want to try this one instead." And it was the Dillon version of it, which was like a gin bow.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was holding a piece of tin.
Yeah, but it's about 1/8 the price of the Lech.
Yeah, to say the least. Go ahead.
I find that the Contra, when I'm really gearing up for something and I get my Contra playing in good shape, I find the bass trombone to be quite a lot easier, and then in turn the Contra becomes a lot easier.
Absolutely.
So Do you find that going between bass trombone tuba or tenor bass trombone? Do you find that?
Yes, all of the above, and from alto to tenor or alto to bass trombone as well.
Mm.
It all helps the other. But the thing is that to build everything on a foundation of buzzing exercises I do with my mouthpieces. When I'm getting ready for bass trombone and the practice, I usually start with that in the day. I go through about 15 minutes of breathing exercises. Then I go into my buzzing glissando exercises that were a gift to me from a wise brass man back in San Antonio by the name of Larry Schmidt. Lives in Bernie, Texas in the Hill Country now and runs the Bernie Community Band. Just another freak of a trumpet player. Another one of these Conrad Gazzo kind of guys, if you know what I mean. If not, Google him. He's a phenomenon. But anyway, Larry turned me on to the buzzing exercises when I was dealing with some embouchure problems due to my teeth shifting back in the early 80s. Too much pressure. Go figure. When I started working on those, I took pressure off the chops and I started realizing that I could go ahead and get a fuller, more sustained sound doing these glissando exercises at first 3 octaves and then 4 and then 5. Now it's 6 to 7 octaves.
Oh, man.
Of the glissandi. Oh, here we go. Remember this part we talked about earlier about doing the buzzing
Go for
thing?
it.
Yeah, there you go. Here, let's hear it.
All right, fine.
Get out of here.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm done. Don't forget to tip your waitress. Good night. That's not a bad warm-up. That's actually pretty good, but I've been doing it more so on the tuba mouthpiece for the most part. It gets everything centered for me. I'll start off on that, and then I'll go over to bass trombone, and then once I'm doing that, I'm in the Felice book doing long tones, societies, and flexibility exercises. After that, I'll go ahead and pull out some Remington for some flexibility or some Arban study. After I do that and take a nice coffee break, come back to it about 20 minutes later and work on Rochu, work on Chimera, work on phrasing studies. And by the end of it, I'm playing through some of the melodic studies. Of course, Blazevich. I'll go into the clef studies just for torture.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good, bass to alto clef. Okay, bass to tenor clef. Cool. Tenor to alto clef sometimes. The wiring gets a little weird. And I understand the keys and I understand the changes. I understand how the clefs work. I get that. When I practice it, it's good. But when I haven't practiced it in a while, I was just doing it last week. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I suck.
I tend to when I go from tenor to alto, I tend to slip into treble clef for some reason. I don't know why.
I can see that. I started off as a kid playing piano, so I can go back and forth between treble and bass. But still, sometimes like thinking it in tenor and then going to treble clef, it's kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, but it's all good.
So you're out of North Texas, right?
Yeah.
And the next step is,
oh gosh, out of North Texas. One of the best things that ever happened to me, one of the greatest musical experiences. I got selected through an audition process to play on the College All-Star Big Band led by Clark Terry. And that was like, man, I went to the school of Ellington with that guy. It was amazing.
The direct lineage, huh?
Very much so. Very much so. His facility, his technique, his chops, his humor, his wit and witticism, not to mention just the most fat, gorgeous sound you'd get out of a trumpet or a flugelhorn. It's like signature. No one else has that sound. It's like, to me, everybody went crazy over Kenny G, and I'm sitting there going, no, if you listen to Wayne Shorter play soprano sax, there's the sound. Listen to Dave Liebman play it. Hell, listen to Sidney Bechet play it, for that matter.
So you're working with Clark Terry.
Yeah, we did 2 weeks in New York where I got to see everyone from the Ellington to the Basie bands come through to check out the young bucks who were playing on the doing CT's gig. It was an amazing band. I mean, Byron Stripling was my roommate, and Byron.
Oh man!
Oh wow!
Yeah, God, what a crack up! We're still buds to the day.
He was just named the chief pops conductor here in the Pittsburgh Symphony. So excited!
Tell him I said hello and I need a gig. I got repertoire for Pops Orchestra. I got repertoire. I sing like Louis Armstrong. Damn it!
He's a beast.
Oh man, listen. What he did in New York, especially when he was like the lead for the musical about Louis Armstrong, ran on Broadway for about I'm going to say about a year, maybe a little longer. But oh my God. Talk about just an amazing artist.
Doing that eight shows a week. Oh
man, woofed up.
Yeah.
But God love him, man. The brother did some amazing shit. Still to this day. I mean, now he's got the gig over there with you guys. I mean, and it's gonna be fun.
Him being an amazing instrumentalist and vocalist like yourself, like, was adding vocals something that you always did with your playing?
Yeah, I started singing at age 5 in the church. So vocals were the first thing. And it's like I said earlier, with my brothers and I doing the whole reel-to-reel, we're vocally recording ourselves. We were making all these percussive sounds to go along with the crazy tunes that we created. So when I got on trombone, it was really foreign and frustrating because all these sounds I had in my head that I could do with my voice, I couldn't do on the trombone. So it's like, okay, I'm getting pissed off here. I need to figure this thing out. So I go in and do lessons with these instructors who were studying with the symphony. In fact, a quick little side story. Just before I got out of the hospital, I got this letter from one of my first trombone instructors, Jane Rossi, who was the second trombonist with the San Antonio Symphony. I had the hugest crush on her. It's the nicest lady, gorgeous blonde hair, blue eyes, and just like so sweet, so nice, and so jumped on my shit when I didn't practice.
Mm-hmm.
But she sent me this lovely letter saying how she and her husband, Nick, who used to be the principal trombone with San Antonio for about 38 years or so, really enjoyed how I had grown up and was developing my playing and such. And she suggested to me that I do these Beethoven cello sonatas. There's like 7 of them, cello suites that Ludwig van Beethoven wrote. And since I do double stops, it's like, yeah, I'll try them. Why not? I was working on the cello suites years ago where I was studying at the time also the works of Albert Mangelsdorff, the great German trombonist.
Yeah.
And the multiphonics that he would do. Since I was singing and playing, I decided to go ahead and incorporate both of them. And that led to being able to start working on independently singing one line while playing another, which still twists my head at times. But it took years of being able to do that. So she had mentioned to me about these Beethoven cello works, and I have yet to get them. It's just right now, it's just enough to go ahead and get through Remington. But, I'm good for about an hour and a half to 2 hours now as compared to where I was to like 2 weeks ago when I came in, where I was just buzzing and going, oh my God, am I going to have a face?
You hear that? You hear that, everybody at home that has been lazy and not practicing? You have zero excuse now.
Yeah, no kidding.
None whatsoever fucking ever. Take that, bitches. Hey, listen, man. I mean, music is one of those things that has been the longest relationship that I've had in my life. It's been with music. Ever since I was a wee baby and, in me mother's womb, listening to Nancy Wilson or Nat King Cole and, growing up with that stuff. And then later on, listening to Christian Lindbergh playing through the Saint-Saëns. Playing the Cavatine, of course, playing Pryor, better than Pryor. Although Pryor, the early recordings of Arthur Pryor, have you heard these?
Yeah,
he could do it.
Oh my God, it was just scary good. And at that time, around the 1890s to about 1923 or so, he's burning up the charts, and everybody's sitting there going, "Wow, that's amazing!" And he's looking at them like saying, "Yeah, don't leave a dry seat in the house, bitches." he just kicked ass. He just kicked so much ass. But from listening to guys like Christian Lindbergh and then studying Charlie Vernon, listening to his works on a Bach bass trombone, which got me hooked on bass trombone and Bachs. My first one was a 50B independent valve.
Me too.
I went dependent for a while and liked it. And years later, I'm talking to Dave Taylor, and he's like, "Yeah, man, dependent's just like." I feel that. And it's like, that's great. That works for you, Dave. You're a fucking monster. To me, I love the independent valves. And the true bores I play now in my Shires have that Blair Bollinger tuning. So it's instead of a full G flat pull, it's a G pull.
It's a flat G, right?
It's a flat G, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with it. Not to mention the true bores still give you a little bit of the valve feel, but you don't get the Thayer pop that comes with a lot of Thayers. Although as of late, what the guys at Edwards have done with it have just really, really improved it more so. But I've been seeing a lot more of the traditional rotor, but it's a different design now, like with the Alessi series that he's been using.
Right.
And I tried those a while back, and they're really good. They're amazing. But, man, I'm so hooked on Shires. I am so hooked on Shires. I'm a Shires whore, I admit it. I hashtag everything.
Yeah.
But, the next step, too, is that getting the new album out, which has me playing along with my friend Becca Patterson.
Trombocalist, right?
Trombocalist, yeah, man.
Great name.
Oh, nice.
So excited about that because it's trombone and voice, putting the whole package together, going back to what CT would do with his mumbles thing. In fact,
I was going to ask you if he ever did mumbles for you.
Oh, man, I would shit myself.
Yeah,
the first dozen
good.
times. Oh,
it is good.
Every night, it's a different version of and it would just mess you up, man. It's like, but the thing is that the phrasing was what killed me. I mean, I get all of the scat syllabalizing and such, but the way he would incorporate it into the phrase and tell a story, it was like you're listening to vocalese and verbalese done, but done in a way that is his own personal thing. And it's genius. A crowd of 15 to 25,000 Swedes mesmerized by a guy going, "Shibong gebang shibong water key."
I love it.
Oh man, it was just killing. I mean, and I talked to him about that afterwards. He's like, "I've always got the phrase in my head, but I can't help it. You know, when I'm doing this stuff, I hear the notes going, like he's going shibong bong down shibing about the you got and he's hearing that in his head while he's doing these verbalizations and such. Talk about like all the hemispheres working.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, just unbelievable stuff. So I couldn't help but be just inspired, instilled, and mesmerized by what the brother did.
So where did you go to next? When did the Air Force come into play?
That was soon after I had left North Texas. I was called by my mom, and I was still kind of going through spinning the wheels and such and trying to work my way into the 1 o'clock lab band. And my father at the time his multiple sclerosis had flared up to the point where they needed help in the family. My older brother had gone off to the Army and was playing in the Army band there. My younger brother was off and joined the Coast Guard. My mom was in the process of finishing a master's degree and said, "Can you come home?" And I said, "Sure." So I went home to take care of him in San Antonio. And at the time when I was there, fell in love, got married, realized I needed a job. But living in Military City, USA, gentlemen, you find yourself with 2 military bands in the same city. One at Fort Sam Houston, the 5th Army Band, and the other one at Lackland Air Force Base, which was the Band of the West. The 5th Army Band, to me, the audition was so easy. Because, I mean, I came out of North Texas. I understood about how to be able to play the repertoire a little bit better in terms of the classical repertoire and the techniques involved, as well as being able to play jazz and as well as pop and R&B and such. You know, one of the last gigs I did before I left North Texas was playing with Aretha Franklin and her big band over at the Budweiser Superfest at the Cotton Bowl in Sorry, tongue clicking. Bad habit.
It's okay.
1989.
Okay.
50,000 people at the Cotton Bowl, and I'm in this big band with Aretha Franklin playing, and with my buddy Sam Johnson, who hooked me up with the gig. And talk about just mesmerized by stardom. Not to mention the grace of the Queen of Soul.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, that was a huge influence on me as well. Because I'm up here and I'm playing "Respect, Bitches," just a little bit. And it was just so kick-ass. It was so kick-ass, and the lights and all like this and stuff. And yet I'm realizing if I sucked on this, then I'd never get another gig in Dallas or anywhere else. So I didn't suck. Played the book, played it the way that they wanted. Everybody was happy with it.
I somehow believe you.
Thank you. At the time, I didn't believe it myself, because afterwards, after we came on, was Stevie Wonder with his Wonder Love band. And those brothers came on the horn section with his, had that book memorized. They played their nutsacks off. It was
I bet they
amazing.
Did you get to hang with Aretha at all? Or was she kind of like...
No, she wasn't that standoffish. In fact, she loved bebop.
Wow.
I found this out years later for playing, I think it was her 73rd birthday party over at the Sheraton Los Anatole in New York. I was playing as a member of the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Latin Band that I got to sing and scat for. And she comes up afterwards and gives me this wink and says, "Yeah, baby." And I'm like, oh, God.
Okay.
Oh, if I were 20 years older, oh, God.
Career
done.
over. Yeah.
Man, that's about as good a compliment as you can get.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. She was so cool, though, because the thing is that when she's a kid growing up, she used to listen to a lot of Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk. And she, being a pianist in church herself, but studying then the R&B stuff that was going on at the time. Guys like Little Richard, who just passed away recently. And she could do boogie-woogie and stuff, but she loved bebop. There was something to it that was just so intricate. And she could sing anything she wanted. I mean, she could sing Puccini arias and like just melt the house.
Yeah.
You know, gospel was her big thing. That's what she grew up with. Jazz, blues, and soul were byproducts of that. But of course, you know, the whole soul R&B thing, she literally defined the genre of just what she was able to do. And she was cool about it. Getting to hang with her was like, you know, you're hanging with royalty. But the royalty's so hip. It's like hanging out with Prince Diana. And it's like, yes, I like jazz. Oh, yay. Let's party. Why, yes, we have Moet. And away we go. And it's, it's like, yeah, that's great. But if you can give me like a PBR, I'll be fine.
I mean, so the list of people you've played with, I mean, I read so many, but I mean, Aretha, Ray Charles, Rosemary Clooney, Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, so many.
Yeah.
Any experiences or moments or just people
Tons.
that really stood out, or certain artists that were a lot different in real life than you thought they'd be?
Well, musically speaking, Ray Charles messed me up. Because, of course, we know about the singing and we know about the organ playing, the piano playing and such, and not to mention he's a grandmaster at chess. But I had no idea he played alto saxophone.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he came out on this gig and he was playing with us because we were doing this gig at a convention, and it's Ray Charles' big band. I got contracted to play it. So, yes, I played with Ray Charles, air quotes. But it was just the hippest thing because I'm sitting next to John Allred on one side, who was just gifted. Oh, my gosh. Bill's son did pretty good for himself. If you haven't checked out John, he's been the real deal for decades. Unbelievable chops. Between, like jazz-wise, between him and Wycliffe Gordon, those are my two favorite guys right now. And they both blow their brains out. They can do anything from like traditional and modern to traditional and bebop. It's ridiculous. And they all have like 7 bloody octaves to do it with. I mean, it's just amazing stuff.
I first was introduced to you as a player by a couple of your students. I went to Interlochen Arts Academy with Steve Gellerson.
Oh, God.
And
I love Steve.
Steve works with us, right? He works for the trombone retreat.
Yeah, I do. I've been keeping up with Steve on Instagram more than Facebook.
Oh, gosh. His
cool.
meat posts.
Oh, man. We've had discussions about that because Steve and I started off when he was like a sophomore in high school at Ronald Reagan High School. And I was coming in as a low brass instructor, and I'm doing everything and wowing everybody, the kids and such. But at that time, around the 90s, I was doing a lot of bass trombone work. And I'd go on in my lessons on bass trombone, and we'd always go through Remington studies. And I'd make them sick with long tones. And then it's like, okay, all 12 major scales before we move on. Let's go.
There you go.
And in Steve's case, getting the sound together, especially once he got into braces, it took a little while to go ahead and do that. But he's developed into a beautiful player.
So it was him and Travis Deeroff.
Yeah.
We were all there together. So they would put on some of your stuff, and that's when I was first like, wait, is this tenor or bass trombone?
Who is this guy?
Yes.
Is he switching? And they're like, no, that's like all one thing.
Yeah.
I was just mind blown.
Thank you. At the time I was playing on Bach, wouldn't you know it? It was a custom-made 42 that I had a 9-inch bell put on it, gold brass, but I had Watanabe actually do some custom work with the valves. And the guys at the pro shop souped up my Thayer valve on it. Souped it up big time.
Yeah.
Instead of like the traditional aluminum garbage they put on there, they put a stainless steel valve on it.
Maybe we could start a TV show. Remember that TV show, Pimp My Ride?
Oh, of course. Of course. I saw Ja Rule on it before he screwed up with the whole fire thing. Among others.
Do you think that there's a future for Pimp My Trombone?
Oh, of course. Oh, man. How many Frankenbone pages have you seen over the last 10 to 20 years alone?
That's true. So, I mean, you were in San Antonio for a long. I mean, it sounds it's almost like you've had, in a way, 3 careers. You did your stint in the Air Force, and then you did all those years in San Antonio, going around all down there, probably San Antonio, Houston, Austin, right up to Dallas. You mentioned,
and then down in the Valley as well, because for the years in the Air Force Band, we'd go down and do a regular tour every February for the Winter Texans or Snowbirds. In the Rio Grande Valley, and we'd get like 5,000 to 10,000 seat auditoriums packed. Wow! Doing patriotism and rhythm and blues, and don't forget Glenn Miller.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, I mean if you don't play in the mood, yeah, exactly. Keeps those coffers going. But the best part about it was afterwards when the kids would come up and they talk to us, and they're so blown away and such. We just let them know that how great it is to be able to make music and make a living in the United States military. Hey, hawk the wares, guys. That's the gig.
Yeah.
But the best part about that was in the case of the Air Force Band, if war contingency broke out, we'd still be hawking the wares. We'd still be playing music. I had friends in the Army bands who, when the Gulf War broke out, bang, they were initially stationed over, driving a truck over in Afghanistan, over in Iraq. And that's some scary ass shit.
Yeah, a little scarier than holding a trombone.
To say the least. I mean, holding the trombone became a saving grace for a lot of these guys, but the PTSD is still a bitch.
Yeah.
It is a fucking bitch.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think if I was like a regular I'm just putting myself in these shoes. If I was like a person who just enlisted in the Army, I'm not sure I'd want a clarinet player driving my truck. Well, I don't know. This is the
especially
kind of action.
If they've studied the bone system, it's not bad. But there's others out there that would mess it up. And don't do the European driving where you got them on the right side of the wheel there over here instead of the left, because then it's like that's a whole different fingering system, and it's like they're screwed unless they study Benny Goodman.
I guess I didn't realize that you were only in New York for 5 years.
Yeah, basically. Actually, I moved there in 2012 and was there from 2012 to 2013, and then ended up coming back to Texas to go ahead and deal with the kidney disease and then the transplant in 2014. So I moved back in 2015, but I always had like the interest going, and I had some people who helped me stay connected in terms of like using an address. My aunt who lives up in New York, Aunt Lula, has had the same place since 1963. She pays $550 a month.
Whoa!
For a 800 square foot 1 bedroom, and it's a 1 bedroom. It's nice.
Wow!
So I'm trying to be the favorite nephew.
Say Lula.
So, yeah,
How you doing?
So well, she already knows. She's been out to my gigs. I got her out to the Blue Note a few times to hear me play with the Dizzy Big Band, or over at Birdland playing with the big band there. She was there for the debut of the Ron Wilkins, Becca Patterson Big Band at Birdland. And there's some great clips on YouTube that are at ronwilkins.net. Another Hawking the Weirs thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like this one arrangement I did on Love for Sale that's going to be on the new album, but it's going to be a scaled down version of it with a rhythm section. Picture, if you will, the great Cole Porter walking into a bar, and there's James Brown with the Brecker Brothers horn section. And that's your start of Love for Sale.
That's I don't know if I can imagine that. Said Cole Porter, and you walk in, and who's it? Who's in there? It's
Cole Porter walks into a bar, and the band on the stage is like smoking, and it's James Brown singing.
James Brown with the Brecker Brothers.
With the Brecker Brothers.
That's a whole vibe.
Mwah, mwah. And the best part about it is that I play it all on bass trombone. The solo, it came out. It's literally some of my best playing to date. The album will be out by midsummer. We're looking at probably right now at about a mid-August release date. But I want to make sure I got all my ducks in a row with BMI for my licensing on my originals, along with working with this label with another tenor trombonist who's teaching at North Texas now. It's a New York cat named Nick Finzer.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Nick's been doing some great stuff online and like Hawking the Weirs for North Texas, as well as his own work as an improvising artist and educator. He's one of my favorite tenor trombonists. He really plays the horn beautifully. He's got this lyrical sense of phrasing that reminds me a lot of the great German trombonist, or actually Swiss tenor trombonist, Jiggs Wiggum.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I love Jiggs' playing. He's got this label called Outside in Music that is a co-op label that works with artists, so we can go through and get our stuff packaged. We can go ahead and line up with publicists at discount fees and get our stuff out there. So I'll be looking at all the streaming services, in particular Spotify and Apple Music, to get it out to others as well, and working with publicists to get the radio spread to happen. But I've already got a lot of early interest in it, because at one point, if nothing else, the bass trombonist will get a kick out of it because it's got a lot of bass trombone on it. The tenor trombonist will go, ooh, how can he play that high? No, it's on a bass trombone, stupid. And then the tuba guys will go, oh, really?
No, the tuba guys are still figuring out how to operate a CD player. So.
Here we go.
Wow.
Here we go. Wow.
At least, but we can guarantee that the euphonium players won't show up.
There, we got it in. We got the euphonium jab in.
Quick side jabs, quick flip off of that side jab. One of my favorite teachers at North Texas was the great Rich Madison. Genius, bebop, euphonium, tuba, valve trombonist. Oh. Just amazing stuff. Find him on YouTube, because he actually worked with this tuba octet called the Tuba Jazz Ensemble. 4 euphoniums, 4 tubas, playing bebop.
Whoa.
And swing tunes on it. Tuba Jazz Consort. It was he and Ashley Alexander, who used to teach at Mount San Antonio College out in California. Ashley being the guy who actually worked with Maynard Ferguson and designed the Superbone, if you remember that piece.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The valve slide motor. I played one of those for a few years when I was in the Air Force Band, just working on my doubles chops, and it was like a bad French horn. I understand why Maynard did it and Holton hooked him up. I get that, but I tried also his Firebird, which was the slide trumpet with the valves on it. That was much easier to blow on. But I'm not a trumpet player. I can play in the upper register with him. I can hang out with him. We can chirp like birds and all that shit. But the thing is that, come on. I was doing a conversation with a bird the other day, and I pulled out my soprano trombone, started playing a little bit, and was able to go ahead and get some things happening. If nothing else, it was a cool conversation.
That's like the only instrument you don't play. I mean, because I was reading it's tenor, bass, euphonium, tuba, bass, trumpet, voice.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
No, that's fine. That's enough.
That's enough.
That's enough. When I was doing the music ed thing at North Texas as well, we had to go ahead and take that brass methods class, woodwind methods class, strings methods class. I have the utmost respect for violinists because I can't do this.
It hurts
all
my
those
wrist.
years all those years of playing like this,
it's all turned around and weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful instrument, and the greats who play it have nothing but the utmost respect for me. I mean, I tried for a while back in the Air Force. I had used a lot of time to practice. So at one point, I was playing some violin sonatas, transposing them, just to figure out the technique on them. God damn it, those things are hard. Those things are so bloody hard. You listen to guys like Vladimir Horowitz.
Yeah.
And I'm studying him at one point, and I'm going, how in the hell does he do that? Especially like this,
I'm gonna take a moment and say, if you're listening, you should, and you don't know who Horowitz was, you should probably go check that out.
Yeah, these days, Itzhak Perlman will be just fine.
Well, I think you need to know both. But
absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Being back here in Texas again after living here for so many years, but now living in Austin, and there was a stretch of time there from 2000 to 2012 where I was doing as much work in Austin as I was in San Antonio, literally living in both cities. Just because Broadway shows that would come through on the Texas circuit, like Wicked, for instance, it would run 6 weeks in Austin and then 6 weeks in San Antonio. They had great trombonists and musicians there who could play them, but it was a matter of time and scheduling. And in my case, being a freelancer and with the reputation I had developed as a player, not to mention also it helps to being a trombonist, we like to hang. We're the most affable bunch of human beings I know outside of, dare I say it, violists.
It's so true.
Violists, I had to think for a second, but it's like, because I go through, my best friends are violists and cellists.
Bass players are pretty hip too.
Oh, jeez, man, of course. The frequencies.
Yeah.
Hey, what subtone did you play today? Check out the C extension. Whoa. Well, here's my contra.
Yeah, exactly.
Next thing you know, we're all going for the brown note from South Park.
Oh, I go for it all the time.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, I love that episode, by the way. I love that episode. It's like, if there was ever a reference for bass frequency, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, that was the greatest concert I ever heard. I shat myself. The brown note. Woo-hoo-hoo.
And we're there.
Yeah. And we're there. Of course.
Okay, trying to get back on the rails here.
I just thought we took a dip. We just took a nice dip. It was fine. It was great. Good. Go ahead.
So yeah, besides your Subaru, what brought you to New York?
Well, at the end of 2012, I was finishing off my time. I'd been teaching at about 7.5 years at the University of Texas at San Antonio. But at the time, too, I was going through the separation and all this. I was looking at my options, and New York was always at the forefront of my mind. I knew that I could find the best cats there. I could learn from the best. I could hang with the best. I had hung out there back in the 80s for a stretch there, and, playing off of Clark Terry. And that always felt like a second home to me. There's no place else like it. So at the time, around 2012, I had played Wicked, the touring musical, probably between San Antonio and Austin. This was probably the 11th time. And I was working with the conductor there, Adam Nicholas Souza, who was such a sweetheart.
Any relation?
Not really. Not really. His more family came from Puerto Rico, the Sousa name.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of music there too.
Sure.
Oh yeah, we would sit back after shows occasionally with the guys and talk shop and occasionally get into musicology. But most of the time we're just getting into Heineken. And don't forget your Bushmills, kids.
Oh, that's good.
Oh yeah. But
I'm getting all these ideas for separate videos and podcasts we can do with Ron now, where we can do barbecue, we can talk whiskey. Anytime.
But going back to the whole thing, at the time around that period, I'm hanging out with Adam. He says, listen, man, you still interested in New York? The conductor for the Broadway pit's going to be coming in to evaluate us and give us a look over, because he does that for all the national touring shows. He's going to come in and check us out. If you want, I'd be happy to introduce you to him. And I'm like, oh, hell yes. So the night he was in on the show, I had a good show. I'm doing that particular book is bass and tenor trombone, with emphasis more on bass.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I'm playing it, and I'm just nailing the book. I've got it memorized. Since I did it on Broadway from literally back in 2015 up to present day, I've probably played at least 2,500 shows of Wicked.
Yeah.
Did you even use the music?
I had to for the Broadway pit because it's a separate book. Because you're going, on the touring show, it's a doubles book, which is great for ka-ching.
Right.
But when you're in the Broadway pit, it's 2 trombones, it's 2 French horns, it's 2 trumpets, and it sounds killer. It's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to sound like. Now I got to figure out how to play this book. But after about the 50th or 60th show, and I owe a big thanks on that end of it to Douglas Previans, who's been the
monster too.
Oh yeah, he's a beast. He's an absolute beast. Because 75% of that book is orchestral,
right,
in nature. It's got some fun little cutesy moments in it and such that could be almost qualified as ragtime. But don't get it twisted, because Broadway is Broadway. I remember one time I was subbing on Motown the musical. It's like, oh, I know all these tunes. This is great. And I was playing it, and the guys came up after and said, "Man, you sound great, but you're too Motown. This is Broadway." Yeah. It's like, but, I'm doing Smokey Robinson's Tears of a Clown, Aretha Franklin's Respect, and I know all these horn riffs and such because I play behind these people. Smokey's a blast, by the way. But it's like, no, it has to be played this way. You have to go back and actually study the tape on it because, to me, it's like, really? So I went back and I studied it, and absolutely. It's a different vibe. If you play West Side Story Overture with Pittsburgh, and you guys play it, and you play the notes off the page, and you're playing it within the style that Bernstein ascribed to, then you're playing these riffs at times that will go through and go bum ba dee bum ba da bum ba da 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 dee da 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 da. So along those lines, even if you're playing through it and you're going with the proper articulation and style, it's got a rhythm to it. It's got to have a bounce to it, because that's a key element of what he did with West Side Story. Talking about the Sharks versus the Jets, they all have their ground and they all have their turf, but the rhythm that they have within the music itself is what makes it so scintillating. And when you play it and you nail it, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. It's an amazing
Nick gets
work.
to play that a lot.
Yeah. I also got a kick years ago. I played Porgy and Bess when they did a revival of it when it was touring, along with the musical Showboat. Talk about an education. Talk about an education. Best part about it was I couldn't see it. Playing in the pit. Playing the notes off the page, man. Getting the feel of it and such. Because if I would have been able to watch it and try to play it, there's no way I could do both. There's no way. They made the mistake one time when we were doing Book of Mormon in Austin, and the stage was set where I could see part of the show. And the first 2 shows, the conductor comes over and says, "Man, you sound great. Stop looking at the show. You're missing these cues because you're laughing."
You'll like this. Our old principal trombonist in New York City Ballet, Rick Chamberlain was his name, and he was playing a Broadway show back in the 70s, and there was some dancers on stage, let's say, and he wanted to be able to see them. And so he got together with the other brass players and said, I can't see him. You guys are telling me that it looks great and everything, and I want to be able to see. So he brought in a huge mirror and put it on the front edge of the pit so he could see the stage. That lasted one show.
And all of a sudden, actors like when he said, "No."
Yeah, exactly. Conductor was like, "Get that out of here."
It's just for rhythmic timing, right?
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, he wanted to see who was dancing to his music.
Okay, here's one for you guys as well. So I'm playing the musical Chicago, and I'm working with these guys from the orchestra. And one of the guys who's playing with me over there, trumpet player whose name will not be told, let's call him Voldemort, decides at one point as we're playing the show, one of the actresses comes sliding down the banister wearing this slinky fishnet looking just flaming hot. Homeboy pulls out his video camera and decides to videotape the slide during the show. On the break, house management comes over with a person and says, "Was one of you guys videotaping that?" I'm sitting there going, "Oh, dude, you're so fired." He didn't get fired. The contractor saved his ass because there's literally no one else who could have played it as well as he was doing it. But the thing is that I'm sitting there and I'm watching this go down. I'm thinking to myself, as this is happening, wow, that's great. Are you fucking kidding me? What are you doing? Oh, man, this is going to be a great video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Video that will never be seen. And once again,
your career.
Voldemort's doing fine. Voldemort's doing fine.
Oh, my God.
Voldemort's still kicking butt. Sounds great. He's a good friend. That's why he's Voldemort. Needless to say.
So Well, I just want to say, Ron,
My gosh,
I'm already
what
going to say
time is
this.
it? Holy shit.
I'm already going to say for the both of us, Nick and I, we would love to have you back on sometime because I feel like we could
It'd
talk
be a
to you
pleasure.
forever.
It'd be a
There's
pleasure.
million stories. It'd be an honor.
We'll have to do an after hours podcast and hear some
Oh man,
after hour material.
I think that's been this podcast.
No, I
Yeah.
said we had our moments of after our material, so it's all good. Guys, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to be able to come on and talk shop. There's, very few things else I would add, but I do this one because we know as artists, especially working now in the times of the plague, we're not making money. I mean, this is tough, and it's great if you got a bank account and all like that. But I had my friend Becca Patterson, along with another one of my former voice students, put together a fundraiser for me that's been doing really well, and it's allowing me the chance to heal and not worry about medical bills. That's called ronsroadtorecovery.com. And
thank you for plugging that because we were going to plug that ourselves. Actually,
Yeah,
you did.
no
That
it
was
for us.
literally what I was about to say, and it's incredible.
See, great
And-
minds.
Well, first of all, the trombone retreat will be making a donation, and just looking at it, it's
Guys, this is the donation. The
No,
hang.
come on, no, we
The
want to.
hang. Okay? Glenn Levitt or Glenn Fiddick?
I'm
I can't
a
wait.
Glenn Levitt fan.
Cool. All right.
Any Glenn.
We can
Any
hang.
Glenn will do.
Any Glenn will do.
But I mean, how does it make you feel? The GoFundMe's raised over $57,000 already. How does that make you feel to see that this outpouring of support?
Totally humbled. Totally humbled. One of the things that I've always taught, and I blame my mom for this, is pay it forward. When we teach music, when we learn music, we're getting instruction from instructors, good, bad, or otherwise, that allow us to be able to go ahead and take the knowledge and use it as we will. Some of the stuff goes in one ear, out the other. Some of it goes in your ear and out your asshole. But the stuff that sticks with you, the stuff that you remember, not only with your head, but with your heart, that's the stuff that lasts. I'm very fortunate to have had the kind of upbringing that I had that has allowed me to be able to appreciate these things now in these times.
But Ron, I mean, gosh,
This has been fun. This has been a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Thank you, gentlemen. I
for
appreciate
so
it.
many reasons, we're so happy to have you on. I mean,
Glad to be.
number one is that you're alive and kicking, and that's
Yeah,
it's amazing. You are and playing 2 hours a day. That's unbelievable.
At this point, it's not enough.
Well, I understand.
It's
I
not enough,
understand
but
that.
I'm pacing it, and I know you guys get it. I mean, we're all players. We understand what this is like. But guys, it's been great. Thank you.
Well, Sebastian, for me at least, this was a interview I was really looking forward to. We monitored from afar Ron's progress coming out of the hospital. We knew he was really knocking on death's door. And once we heard he had turned a corner and got better and was coming out of the hospital, I think we were both really anxious to interview him. Not just about his COVID battle, but him as an artist. Really, he's an incredible musician, and so it's both pertinent to our trombone podcast, but also pertinent to the times that we live in.
absolutely. I don't think you could think of a more perfect person to talk to right now. The stuff he went through, man, that's about as real as it gets. I can't even imagine just facing death like that, looking right at it, and it was just really powerful what he was saying. He's like, I saw black.
Yeah.
And not in a negative way. He saw black because he knew he had more to do. And he's obviously a deeply religious person. And and golly, just the power of music, man, the power of belief, the power of him having a purpose in life. And he's inspired so many people through this. And we're so lucky that, he's big time now on CNN, USA Today. Making time for this lowly trombone retreat. We were very honored. We look forward to hanging with him in real life soon.
Absolutely. It's interesting, from the outside perspective. In some ways, I think that his struggle was more stressful on the outside, but just because he like you said multiple times. I mean, he just didn't know how much time had elapsed. He just went dark to the world. Now, aside from some crazy dreams that he mentions, that's such a scary thing to think about, but also a real thing. It's all of us will meet that one day. Not to get too dark on it, but all of us will meet that the same experience one day. I'm amazed that it seems like he snapped out of it and was just like, all right, time to get going again. We got an album to get out there. I have my taxes to do. Which I know is fun. I mean, I guess fun. It is funny. It is funny that, well, that's one of the first things you think of. It's so I'm very happy to hear that he's doing so well. 2 hours a day on the trombone now, and he's saying that's not enough. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this album. He's one of the perfect examples of someone you got to hear live at some point. I've had that fortunate opportunity a few times, and he puts on a show, man. And it's usually something unexpected. And his improvs, he'll just seamlessly go in between scatting and playing incredibly virtuosically, then multiphonics, and doing something beautifully artful and song-like in a ballad. And he can really lead a show. He can really control a room. And as you can tell, I mean, he's just full of stories. He's all over the place. He has so much knowledge and so many experiences and so much love for music.
But the thing that I think about when I've heard Ron since I've been 17 years old. The thing, as high school kids, like the thing that they were so blown away with was his flexibility and his range. And of course, I'm not taking away from that. It's pretty freaking remarkable, like his range and his flexibility. But to me, the most amazing thing is like you hear people who can play up there. You hear people on saxophone, trumpet, trombone that can get all over the instrument. But it's rare to hear someone who incorporates these kind of extremes, whether it be technique or range, into actually linear music, into actual lines. And you hear him, and it's seamless up and down the horn. Like he'll go up and he'll play these lines and he incorporates it, and it's not a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's an absolute part of phrasing. And I think that is what's remarkable, is that he's not only figured out how to play these extremely high registers on the trombone, but he's figured out how to make it workable in a musical sense. And that is like just absolutely mind blowing.
It's the whole point, right?
It's pretty rarefied air, that he's breathing. And I guess no pun intended, in a lot of ways, he's breathing a lot of rarefied air right now. So
yeah, those are always the trombonists that I admire the most, I guess I'd say, is the ones that aren't like trying to be the best version of perfection or something compared to everyone else. He's just a true original. He's doing his own thing. He's chasing what he hears in his head. He's figuring out things on the trombone I've never really heard other people do before. In a practical sense. And that's the kind of mindset, that discovery mindset that I love, just trying to be the best version of yourself.
Right. Totally. Absolutely. And, he mentions a lot of his influences. He talks about Maynard Ferguson. He talks about Bill Watrous. He talks about J.J. Johnson. And I think you can hear a lot of that in his playing, especially the kind of altissimo register that is explored, especially by Maynard Ferguson and Bill Watrous. And, you might want to throw in someone like Andy Martin out in LA or something like that. It has this quality to it. There's very few people that can explore that register in a lyrical way. And that's kind of, if I could boil it down, that's kind of what I would be so impressed with Ron. And then on top of that, he does it on a bass trombone. So he's coming from like pedal D's going up to like super D's above the super B flat, and playing lines up there. It's if you haven't heard him after this podcast, I hope we've kind of whet your appetite to go check him out on YouTube and check out his album and be anxious for his new album to come out. And I think he said it's sometime this summer. I think he said it's going to come out.
Yeah, I think they're hoping for July is what I read.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like this idea of hanging out with Ron, eating some barbecue, like going to the amazing barbecue places in Texas and filming something. I like this idea. I think we should make it happen. He got me so excited talking about all that. I had to order barbecue immediately after we finished the interview. I can barely sit up straight right now.
That's true. I can attest to that because Sebastian sent a text to the Trombone Retreat administrative crew of all of his barbecue that he had, which was, I think, it looked like ribs and
It was a lot of food.
It was a lot. It was like 3 styrofoam containers full of stuff.
It's one of those things when like you order it and they don't have everything, so they like compensate by giving you like everything else they had, and it's just
I'm not familiar with that. I live in New York. You get what they're going to give you.
Actually, a really good strategy. Jeff D, bass drummer in the Pittsburgh Symphony, was just telling me about this. There's this amazing Thai place here in Pittsburgh that they've figured out the timing exactly, like right before they close, and they're just notorious for not wanting to throw away food. So they order right before they close, and they always get like twice as much food.
Is that the place we ordered from when I came through Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Nikki's Thai. Nikki's Thai. Do you want to be a sponsor of the Trombone Retreat podcast?
Because they gave us a bunch of extra stuff too when we ordered.
That's right.
They gave us like fried banana stuff, and there's like a couple extra dishes. Like was like, who ordered this? And
that's good business. Undersell, over deliver.
There you go. Well, hopefully we are underselling and over delivering.
This podcast sucks.
Yeah, we are terrible. You're not going to like it at all.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, my man.
Where are you going to see me? I can't remember.
At the online trombone retreat.
Huh.
And that's happening July 6th through 12th. Please go to tromboneretreat.com and sign up. We have a lot of great, amazing performing artists giving master classes. We're going to have recitals. We're going to have a lot of amazing guest speakers on topics such as performance psychology, mobility and wellness, personal finance, and setting up your tech setup at home to optimize how you sound online. So it's going to be a really awesome time, and we're really glad that, despite the circumstances, we can still bring some of what we do every summer to everyone. So yeah, just go sign up. Just throw your email address on there. It is free as free can be.
Wait. How much does it cost?
$0, Nick. It costs $0. You got it in. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, I actually... I don't know what I did because that was just my natural enthusiasm for.
That just like came out.
It was just like, yeah, it was part of my body.
I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on your David singing. So
I would love to hear some about it. Cause I mean, I fancy myself the songbird of my generation.
I'm not sure what generation you're referring to, but I'm glad that you believe that.
Wow. Wow.
No, in all honesty, Nick is a very good friend and likes to regale his friends. And I've been the beneficiary of this many times of just waking up in the morning and there's just a fresh song that Nick has sung. So maybe every now and then you might hear some on the podcast. Maybe you won't. But
maybe you can request some songs in a 5-star review.
Hey.
Oh, there's an incentive. I will sing whatever you want. Well, let's keep it above the belt here, but
that reminds me, if you enjoyed the podcast, please consider leaving us a rating and review on iTunes with a question or topic you'd like us to discuss. And follow us at Trombone Retreat on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and our website, tromboneretreat.com. Also, feel free to shoot us an email at tromboneretreat@gmail.com, as we love hearing from you. You can also follow Nick at basstrombone444 on Instagram, and myself at js.vera on Instagram, and at Sebastian Vera on Twitter. Got it all. Nailed it. Okay.
As always.
You do it. Retreat yourself.
Retreat yourself.